Hi everyone. In this discussion, we'll talk about a concept called flow theory and how it can inform your design of instruction in the classroom. Now, I'm making this video and I want you to watch it even before you start your lesson plans. So I've not talked with you yet at the time that you're watching this about all of the steps that you're going to be doing in your lesson planning process. That's very much on purpose. I'm starting with a little bit of theory and learning theory for you, as well as motivation theory, before I get into the nitty gritty of here's how I do your lesson plan for a reason. I first want you to think about the why, then I want you to do the how, and I want you to use the why to inform your how of lesson planning. If I do it otherwise, what I could often have happen, and because I've seen it happen, is students will put a lesson plan together before they've even really studied these learning theories and motivation theories of how students learn, and then the lesson plannings don't reflect the learning theories that we're learning. So that's very much on purpose. We will get into more lesson planning nitty gritty as we get further into this course very shortly in the coming weeks. Okay, so a little bit about flow theory. Background here. Flow theory has been around for a very long time. It's a psychological state that is very comparable to being in the flow with sports. If you've heard of athletes talk about I was in the zone. When an athlete says that they're in the zone, what does that mean? It means they lost track of time. They were highly focused, highly concentrated. They didn't really hear the crowd. They weren't distracted. They were performing at their optimum ability. That's the gist of what flow theory means as we get further into this. Flow is a state in which people are so involved in a purposeful activity that nothing else seems to matter. Flow involves highly intense concentration, the use of personal skill, high personal skill, in such a focused absorption into the activity that there tends to be a sense of losing track of time. Your skills are stretched to the optimum of their ability. Your skills are reshaped into more complex abilities. Flow is associated with many activities. You can be in flow as you read. You can be in flow as you write. You can be in flow as you play basketball. You can be in flow as you cut fish and make sushi. You can be in and there have been studies showing all this. You can be in flow as you're a medical surgeon performing a surgery. A common theme in flow experiences is a sense of discovery, a creative feeling of being transported into a new reality. For example, there's this within flow theory research, there's a famous description from a novelist describing what it feels like to be deeply concentrating as you're writing. You're concentrated on your characters, on the situation, on the form of the book, on the words which are coming out and their shape. You're not an ego at that point. It's not competitive. I would use the word pure. You know that this is right. Components of a flow experience include the following: focused attention and complete involvement in the activity, the merger of what your action is and awareness of your action, freedom from worrying about failure, freedom to take risk. These are all things I'd like us to encourage for our students to experience. A thing here about flow before we go further along is that flow is kind of elusive. You can train yourself to experience flow more likely once you get used to it and you study flow a little bit. You can train yourself. In fact, flow is addictive. Once you've experienced flow while you're reading, you're more likely to want to read because flow is strongly related to intrinsic motivation. Flow can be disrupted by the bell ringing and so forth. But what I want us to think about is how can you plan your instruction with middle schoolers or high schoolers in a way that sets at least the context for the possibility of students achieving flow. Because even if they're at least close, even if you're trying to set the context, that means that you're going to plan your lesson in ways that are purposefully intended to help the students get highly engaged, highly focused. Some other components of the flow experience. There's a type of disappearance of self-consciousness. You're not really aware even of yourself right then. You're just focused on that task that you're doing. There's a distortion of sense of time. You lose track of time. You can not even be aware that 30 minutes or 40 minutes have passed as you're doing the activity. The reward is itself that means autotelic or intrinsic motivation, intrinsic reward. The reward is the experience itself. Some characteristics of being in flow include the following: lack of self-consciousness, a feeling of control of one's actions, high level of intrinsic satisfaction. Wouldn't that be nice for your students to experience? Flow in education. Flow has been highly studied in middle school and high school contexts. There's a balance between the challenge of the task and the skill needed for that task. Flow is predicted to only occur when the level of challenge and skill is in relative balance. If that sounds like the ZPD, it is. Flow is very strongly related to the ZPD. Although Vygotsky wasn't studying flow, flow theory came long after Vygotsky's death, but there's a strong relationship there. So flow occurs just above the student's mean skill level, or average skill level. Flow in education, you want to seek a balance between challenge and skill. A challenge at an appropriate skill level promotes avoidance of boredom and the development of new skills. Notice again, if you're teaching that child within that child's ZPD, that increases the possibility for that child to encounter a flow experience. Studies have related flow to high engagement, positive emotions, enhanced cognitive processing, as well as creativity. Instruction that encourages flow, according to scholars that have studied this, include the providing of a sense of control and competence for students. You want to provide students with a challenge that requires use of appropriate skill. Clear goals for the students with immediate feedback on how they're proceeding toward accomplishing that goal. And ideally, the student should be able to monitor, self-regulate. Activities that focus on the immediate experience as well as the possibility for purposeful social interaction toward those goals. Okay, so this was a short presentation. Just wanted to introduce you to the concept as we begin to edge our way toward understanding of scaffolding, understanding of self-regulation, as well as understanding of how to engage in engaging lesson planning that we'll get into shortly in this course. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.